And we know that's for certain because he jumped off the roof and ran out of the campus. We saw that. So these images are from when he showed up, and there is not a Mauser in his pants or on his backpack. Lots of shit going on in the Charlie Kirk case. A lot of it is goofy, and some of it makes me raise an eyebrow. But that's the reason why I work from the outside and work my way in. I'm not just going to jump to the center of the case. So if it takes me some time to understand this, it's because I'm trying to understand it fully. Like, I've downloaded a lot of stuff, but I haven't even watched or even gotten into the really deep stuff yet, because I'm going to work my way to the center and really understand what's going on. So, if you don't hear me saying things, there's a reason why. But I want to take another look at the narrative and go through that and go over a few different things. Now, before we get into that, I was discussing George Zinn and the woman here who filmed it, right? And how she reacted to it. It sounded weird. It sounded contrived to me. And someone left a comment, and I'm not going to mention their name, but it says, "Come on, dude. Sounds like leftist rage. What are you talking about? Are you really selling the left-right dynamics on this channel?" I'm not selling the left and right dynamics, but I understand that there is a difference between the way left and right people think. And I want to explain that further. If you really study people on the right are more likely to have very deliberate movements, much different than many people on the left. Also, and I'm not going to go through all of this, this is just one thing that I'm going to point out, is that people on the left tend to repeat mantras or words over and over again, especially in high stress or confrontational situations. They will repeat the same thing over and over and over. And that's what I was pointing out in this video. She says monster over and over and over. And then when the woman tells her to back up, she feigns like she's being hurt. That's what I was pointing out. Let me show you that real quick. See, she's repeating the same thing over and over. And then she acts like that woman is hurting her somehow. She feigns being hurt. And that's one more thing about leftist people. They tend to have a more victim mentality, and they're more likely to behave this way. Back it up! Back it up! Like, what is that? So she repeats monster, monster, monster over and over. And I just want to show you this real quick. I grabbed this video as an example. I go, okay, I'm going to grab a leftist video. And I swear, as God is my witness, I looked up leftist crowd, and I grabbed the first video that I thought would pertain to what I was talking about. The first one, I downloaded this one right here. I was like, okay, I'm going to randomly download this video. There are people arguing here in a crowd, and the right-wingers are yelling at this guy. Pay attention. There's a difference in psychology between the right and the left. That is how, that is how, that is how. See, I grabbed one leftist video, and he's repeating the same thing over and over. That is how, that is how, that is how, that is how, that is how. They have the tendency to do that. Just like the woman who was videoing George Zinn. She was repeating monster over and over and then feigned like she was hurt. It has a leftist vibe to it. That's what I was saying. Just because I don't promote or take sides left and right on this channel does not mean that I don't understand the difference in psychology between people on the left and people on the right. There is a difference. While we are on the subject of George Zinn, let's take a look at the video that I couldn't find the other day. And this is him being arrested, and he's yelling, "Shoot me," over and over. We don't know if it's him or not. We don't know if it's him or not. But he's making a spectacle of himself. Shoot me, shoot me. He is trying to be seen. There was something going on with that. He's trying to be noticed and take eyes off something else. This is like a typical magic trick. And we are going to go over the narrative of Robinson. But before we do that, I want to show you one more video on George Zinn. These are two witnesses, and they were saying that that's not the guy that shot him. And this guy is wearing the 47 hat, right? And they're talking about George Zinn. You need to hear this.
I think whoever did it was a good shooter, a sharp shooter. It was one shot right directly to the heart, and we need to find...
To the heart? How did he know that when it shot him in the neck? No one had analyzed any footage. There was no talk of a ricochet off his vest. So, you know, that's a little weird.
Right directly to the heart, and we need to find out who did this. I think there should be a research completely done that took place hours, maybe a day before anything went on. Who could be there and pull that trigger and do it? And I don't think it was George Zim. He was poor, broke.
What? How do they know that George Zinn is poor and broke? What is that?
Pull that trigger and do it. And I don't think it was George Zim. He was poor, broke. He maybe was on medication a little.
He may be on medication. How do these people right here know that much about George Zinn? Just random people at an event. It's starting to remind me of 9/11 with the Harley guy.
Who could be there and pull that trigger and do it? And I don't think it was George Zim. He was poor, broke. He maybe was on medication, a little bit of loony boon. Maybe a perfect person to pick and say that did it, but I don't think he did.
Where did they get all that information? Couple of boomers. Where do these boomers get this information from? Did they hop on their phones and look up George Zinn? Because George Zinn was interviewed on 9/11, like I showed in my first video, and he was completely and totally lucid. Why would they say he's loony now?
Maybe he was on medication, a little bit of loony boon. Maybe a perfect person to pick and say that did it, but I don't think he did it at all.
So at this point, but did you see him taken into custody? Did you see him with any kind of thing in his hand, any device in his hand or anything like that?
Yeah, I saw when they actually put the handcuffs behind his back.
Okay.
I followed them.
All right,
when
we're going to go to
took him
Jason
the trooper
Chaffetz.
car.
You know, obviously.
There's something up with that. All these witnesses seem to know George Zinn, know his personal details. Even that woman that was videoing did not sound sincere. It's weird, man. Now, here is George Zinn talking about 9/11. He's part of a foundation. Check this out.
Just on September 10th, 2001, and I'm a huge Broncos fan, so I was good. It was the opening night of Denver Broncos Stadium. I went down there, and we were playing the Giants that night. And so it was a huge event for us. I remembered everything that happened. We opened the stadium on September 10th, 2001. And so, you know, I was, we won the Giants, which was good. I remember that was when Ed McCaffrey actually got hurt that night on a...
So the point is that he's very, very lucid. He's not yelling, shoot me, and all this shit. So there's something going on here. He seems to be everywhere. Now, I want to talk about narratives and timelines. When these big events happen, these timelines, these narratives are written very, very carefully. I'm not talking about local reports. Local reports are slapped together with a bunch of information, right or wrong, and they don't give a shit. But when they repeat these narratives or timelines to the public about these big events, they are very, very carefully written. Here is the Thomas Crooks Trump shooting narrative. Let's go over this for a minute and listen to the details.
At approximately 5:10 p.m., the shooter was again identified by local law enforcement as a suspicious person around the AGR building. And at approximately 6:08 p.m., the subject was observed on the roof by local law enforcement. At approximately 6:11 p.m., a local police officer was lifted to the roof by another officer, saw the shooter, and radioed that he was armed with, quote, a long gun.
Okay, he says right there. He sees the guy, he's armed with the gun. That's what we should have gotten out of the Charlie Kirk narrative. At least these are written very, very carefully. Let's go over the narrative that they've given us about this Tyler Robinson character. The Crooks timeline was intentionally giving details. He was armed, he had a firearm. You need to pay attention to how vague the timeline to this whole thing with Tyler Robinson is. Pay attention. I'll stop along the way and point out some things.
The unidentified individual will be referred to as suspect. Based on surveillance camera footage, suspect appears to be a white male with dark-colored hair, wearing a dark-colored hat, sunglasses, a long-sleeve black shirt with a picture of an American flag and an eagle printed on the shirt, dark-colored jeans, and white-gray shoes with white-colored shoelaces. The shoes appear to be consistent with Chuck Taylor Converse-style shoes. Suspect is also carrying a dark-colored backpack on his back.
Okay, so they just confirmed that the suspect is carrying a backpack. So what he was carrying around in the video that we went over before on the roof, hopping off the roof, is a backpack. Something that is nowhere near large enough to hold a Mauser rifle. So just keep that in mind. So now that's crystal clear.
Suspect walks with a distinctive gait. Prior to the shooting, suspect appears to walk with a stiff right leg and a relatively slow pace. Suspect's ability to bend his right leg appears to be restricted.
Now what they're trying to insinuate there is that the gun was in his pants. If you saw the pants that he was wearing, the jeans, they're not fat pants. They're not even carpenter pants. They're very slim-fitting jeans. They're nowhere near big enough to hold a Mauser in them. This is allegedly a Mauser 98, very similar to the rifle that he was using. This is bigger than a 2x4, much bigger than a 2x4, especially when you get towards the stock of the gun. There is no way that he had that in his pants when these are supposed to be from 40 to 44 inches long. It's absurd. And there's also something that you need to remember called printing. When someone has a weapon on them, the distinctive shape of the weapon sticks out. Like if they have a gun in their hoodie, you can see the printing of the gun in the pocket of their hoodie. If you have a rifle like this in your pants, especially jeans like that are slim-fitting, they're going to show up. Those were not baggy pants. So let's keep going here.
Investigators were able to track suspect's movements on the UVU campus starting at approximately 11:50 hours on September 10th, 2025. At approximately 11:50 hours, a UVU surveillance camera first captured suspect walking across a grassy area north of Campus Drive at approximately 800 West. By the way, we knew that there were surveillance footage, but now we're really getting this in depth. A suspect walked south through the parking lot and approached a pedestrian tunnel that runs underneath Campus Drive. Before entering the tunnel, suspect paused at the top of the stairs and pulled out what appeared to be a cell phone from his right pocket using his right hand at approximately 11:53 hours. Suspect eventually put what appeared to be a cell phone back in his right pants pocket using his right hand. Surveillance captured suspect making his way toward the Losi Center. At approximately 12:02 hours, suspect was recorded walking on the north side of the Losi Center building, walking with the same gait as observed earlier.
There could be a lot of things to this gait that they're talking about. I truly, highly doubt, and someone needs to try it. Try to stick a Mauser 98 in your pants and walk around. They're saying that he's hopping things, he's hopping walls, walking upstairs. I don't see this happening. You would be pretty much crippled with a Mauser 98 stuck in your jeans.
Suspect entered the Losi Center building through a set of doors on the southeast corner of the Losi Center building. At approximately 12:15 hours, suspect was observed walking up to the stairs that led to the common area adjacent to the Losi Center building.
Okay, are these the photos when he's walking up there? Because it appears that he's walking up, not down. So it appears that these are the photos of him entering the area. Do we see a Mauser on him? Are those original photos of him that they released, are those him entering the area? Because he is going up the stairs here. We'd never see a gun on this guy, ever. A rifle, not a handgun, or a large rifle with a scope that makes it even bigger.
Suspect walked to a short concrete wall that separates the common area from the rooftop of the Losi Center building. At approximately 12:17 hours, suspect climbed over the short wall.
How did he do that? How did he climb over a short wall with a Mauser 98 stuffed in his jeans? It's not making sense, but pay attention to how intentionally vague this is.
And appeared to crouch down on the north side of the wall on the rooftop. At approximately 12:22 hours, suspect stood up and started running across the rooftop of the Losi Center building.
Okay, they never mention that he's armed here at this point, which you should clearly be able to see that he's armed. They never mention that. They only mention that he's now running.
The notable limp from previous surveillance was absent.
But they never say he had a weapon.
Suspect ran to the west side of the rooftop and appeared to scoot along the rooftop area as he got closer to the edge of the rooftop.
Never said he had a gun. Again.
At approximately 12:22 hours, suspect laid down in a position consistent with a prone shooting position.
but never mentions a weapon. They mentioned it in the Thomas Crooks narrative, but they're not mentioning a gun here intentionally. So he gets into a shooting position, but they don't mention the gun.
Near the edge of the rooftop and appeared to be facing west in the direction of the courtyard area. The rooftop of the Losi Center building overlooks the courtyard area where the event featuring Charlie Kirk was taking place. The Losi Center building is east of the courtyard area. At approximately 12:23 hours, Charlie Kirk was shot. At approximately 12:23 hours, surveillance shows that suspect stood up suddenly from the edge of the rooftop and sprinted north on the rooftop of the Losi Center building.
Okay, if he's sprinting, they should clearly be able to see the weapon. When they show him sprinting in that first video, it had just happened. He did not have time to pack a weapon up. So he should be either sprinting with that weapon in hand, or he left the weapon behind. One of the two. But they find it in a woods. There is no weapon here. Someone came to my video and said, you can see the weapon at 1:30. The FBI has said that they don't see a weapon in any of these videos of him on the roof.
Suspect ran to the northeast corner of the building and approached the edge of the rooftop. Suspect placed a dark-colored item on the rooftop and proceeded to lower himself off the rooftop.
That's his backpack, dark-colored item. They don't mention a gun. For how big he is in this image, you should be able to see a Mauser 98. For crying out loud.
Suspect dropped off the rooftop onto the grass below. Suspect ran north near the parking lot to the east of the Losi Center. At approximately 12:24 hours, suspect ran north across the Campus Drive Road. Suspect appeared to be carrying an item whose identity is not clear from the surveillance.
They just said it. Let's play that again.
Suspect appeared to be carrying an item whose identity is not clear from the surveillance.
Whose identity is not clear from the surveillance. They just said it. They can't tell it's a gun. If the feds and the police cannot tell it's a gun, then don't come to my channel saying that you can see a gun at a certain point in the video. What they're saying there is they can never identify him carrying a gun.
Suspect appeared to be carrying an item whose identity is not clear from the surveillance, so whether or not it was the weapon.
So they don't know. They don't know.
The area to the north of Campus Drive Road where suspect crossed over consists of a grassy area with trees on the edge of the UVU campus. Investigators discovered a bolt-action rifle wrapped in a dark-colored towel.
It's wrapped in a dark-colored towel. None of it adds up. Was he carrying the towel in his backpack and took it out? If he took the towel out to wrap the gun in, when? When he got to the woods? With the gun that we can't see in the video? With the gun that they can't see in the video? With the gun that they clearly admit cannot be seen in the video? A large Mauser 98.
The rifle had a scope mounted on top of it.
There you go. The rifle had a scope. They show an AR. Of course they did. It's not an AR. That's deceptive. It cannot be broken down like an AR. The gun is one piece. And if you take it apart, if you take that weapon apart and put it back together, it is going to be highly, highly inaccurate until you calibrate everything again.
Investigators noted inscriptions that had been engraved on casings found with the rifle.
There's a big problem here because they're saying that he texted people or wrote people messages via Discord talking about going to get the gun. If they're talking about going to get the gun and he traveled with this gun to the woods, what is the point of writing on the casings? The point of writing on the rounds is to send a message. Why they were doing this. That has happened since Christchurch. Christchurch is what brought that whole thing in. And I won't get into that, but there was a lot going on in that case. So we have this trend of writing on the casings to see why you were doing it. Why would he ever talk about picking up the weapon? Right. And why would he have ever carried it off the roof in the first place? It doesn't make sense. You're not going to write that stuff on the rounds just so you have an inside joke with yourself. That doesn't make sense. And he only shot once, but there was writing on multiple casings. And they are intentionally being elusive about what they say in these timelines. They never ever say that he has a rifle on him or that they can see a rifle. Ever. They say that he gets in a shooting position, but they never mention the rifle like they do in the Crooks case where they say he's armed. We see him, he's armed. They never ever say that intentionally. There's something going on here. You need to pay attention to that. You see the suspect run across the roof, jump off, and leave the campus. So, these photos are from when Robinson showed up to the event. When Tyler Robinson showed up to the event, going up the stairs, which they describe in the timeline. Do you see a Mauser 98 with a scope? Do you see a Mauser printing in those jeans? His legs are bent. Where is the gun, dude? Somebody screwed up here. What they are showing us are images of the surveillance video when he showed up to the event. And there is no Mauser shoved in his pants. And we know that's for certain because he jumped off the roof and ran out of the campus. We saw that. That's what they are telling us. So these images are from when he showed up, and there is not a Mauser in his pants or on his backpack.